When I see articles like this is when you know gamers have won another battle. Video game studios got everything that was coming to them. It's always the same story. Make a video game product for no one, but only for the developers, the video game journalists, and everybody else who's in their mental asylum circles. And when reality hits them like a double-decker bus when a game is released and nobody buys the product, but instead the gamers spend all of their time roasting them so hard, that's when the developers and the video game studio itself has been stripped raw and cooked medium well. But as always, instead of self-analysing the problem and what went wrong, nope, the Operation Hate campaign and stroke one's ego is in full swing. And when you find out about the very people who writes these articles are in the very circles, that's when you know everything they say in this article is not real life, and they already know they have so lost. So today, let's take a quick read of this article and remind ourselves of the failures of Kareem Bush, John Epler, and Weeks, and why they should never work in a video game studio, let alone set foot in one ever again. And also discuss another article that flat out lies about Gamergate 2.0 and what's really going on in the Western video game industry. So without further ado, hi, I'm Wilksy, and let's dive into this stupidity. If you have not subscribed already, followed any of my socials, do it right now, and let's make a kingdom.
Assemble the army.
Kareem Bush is the ruler of RPGs, conqueror of haters. The director of Dragon Age brings her personal journey to life in her games with a rich, messy tapestry of love, life, and romance. And immediately, I will close this article. Not only is this ego stroking, but it's all lies. Ruler of RPGs? Since when, Kareem, as you're only known for making Sims games and Anthem, and yeah, we all know how that went. But what's worse, if you self-insert yourself into a video game, let alone a piece of media, then automatically you have no creativity, let alone talent. A talentless hack with a budget over $250 million? What could possibly go wrong?
Feels right when she says I act more like a man. It feels right. Why does it feel right?
Tosh, do you like being a woman?
Nobody likes being a woman.
Ah.
If something about being a woman is hurting you, I don't think it's stupid at all.
But what does it mean?
Stop it, please, I beg you!
Alright, it had. Big time. So the title is already to a bad start. Oh, and by the way, this is Kareem's history just to make sure that everybody knows. And of course, she will use her sexuality and self-victimization to avoid criticism in her own safe space bubbles. As in reality, that tactic doesn't work at all. If there is a single Dragon Age character that ever made their way to Smash Bros, it should be a lovable dwarf, Varric Tefras. At least that's what Dragon Age, the Vanguard director, Kareem Bush thinks. Can you imagine, in-game, like Super Smash Bros, seeing him whip around the battlefield? Bush tells inverse, you could smash someone back off the ledge and giving Bianca a good old toss. And don't worry, it will ratchet, he'll catch it. It writes itself. That holistic sense of character is a big part of what made Dragon Age so successful and lasting. Its influence is clear to see. especially in the 2023 Game of the Year Baldur's Gate 3, which heavily borrows from the world and party member designs from Dragon Age games. It's a connection that has been pointed out by countless fans and critics. But what's fascinating is how Baldur's Gate 3 and Veilguard feels like they're advancing different aspects of Dragon Age's identity. Wow, if you're comparing Veilguard to Baldur's Gate 3, this just tells me how hard you're shilling for this already. This already made failure. At least in Baldur's Gate 3, you got to make your own decisions and how you want the journey to go. But in Veilguard, nope, everything is decided for you, and every conversation is a HR struggle session. Oh, and if you're praising Varric, then why did you kill him off? Literally the first part of the game. But moving on, it's not lost on me, and it's not lost on the team how important these games are in people's lives. Bush says, coming into this game, that's a tremendous feeling of accountability and of needing to be true and authentic to what these games mean to people. Oh really, Bush? If you're speaking of true and authentic, why don't you admit that changing everything in the previous title, Dragon Age the Dreadwolf, thereby not giving the audience what they wanted, but ultimately not take accountability that BioWare, yourself, John Epler and Weeks were the cause of this total collapse. Oh, and did you know that the Dreadwolf team got all laid off, including Mary Kirby? And on top of that, they were not allowed to put this work in their portfolios due to their NDAs, meaning that Corin, Peter Weeks and John Epler stole their entire 4 to 5 years of work.
You bastards! You vicious, heartless bastards!
Corin and BioWare, you really are a piece of work. When it comes to authenticity in games, plenty of directors and developers talk the talk, but Bush is a rare game maker who delivers. From her time with The Sims to Dragon Age, Bush has always brought a deep sense of humanity to the game, putting characters first and never shying away from nuance or complexity in identity, relationships, and existential crisis. It's what makes Bush a leader in the industry, and why BioWare tried so hard to carry on the Dragon Age series legacy with Veilguard. But Bush isn't finished yet. She's come a long way in the industry and has wisdom to impart, and more projects to come. In Bush's mind, not embracing the lived experiences of the development team will result in stories and worlds less relatable, less alive. Game developers also need to feel safe in what they do, which ultimately means being able to see themselves reflected in their work. I'm not going to read any more of this because it's just ego stroking lies and nothing at all about the game itself and why it failed. All I got from this is activists know better, video game journalists are too scared to think or let alone write their own criticisms, heck, not even allowed to say the truth of the situation, and the gamers who did not buy the product, let alone spend their time dunking on it, are the problem. Everything that they just said about us gamers were exactly spot on. We won, they lost, and they know it. Because if gamers are going to spend all their time dunking on your game, and the development team who think they are God's gift to gamers, your game is already dead and not going to make net revenue. But they're just too stupid, let alone don't want to face the consequences of their actions. Gamers spending more of their time dunking on video game studios that hate them than spending their hard-earned cash on buying their products. What a time to be alive. Game developers also need to feel safe in what they do, which ultimately means being able to see themselves in their work. And that's the problem, Hayes. Why are you 5?
Stop being such a pussy.
Welcome to the real world, let alone the cutthroat marketing world. Once you are a big branded name or developer working on hundreds of millions of dollar budgets, you're going to be criticized left, right and sideways that you cannot avoid. And if Corrine wanted the praise she deserves, then she needs to earn it by listening to us. It's not rocket science. But if Corrine chooses not to and attack us gamers, She needs to be not only fired, but never to step into the industry again. But really, anyone that hires these people in the first place means they're fully on board with everything they put out. So really, you all deserve each other at this point. Hence why I will never buy their products again. Actually guys, I was wrong. It was not Hayes, or the publisher, or the editor-in-chief who wrote this. It was Corrine herself, and she demanded them to put this all in. Hayes Madsen is a video game trends writer for Inverse Gaming section, where he covers the most buzzworthy events and controversies in the industry, along with some of the most compelling community stories. Hayes has more than 10 years of experience in journalism, with a special focus on entertainment and the video game industry. Yeah, 10 years of absolute waste, no talent, and being told what to write. Because if you can't do the basics of journalism, then we know it's not actually your article. It's actually the publisher or the editor-in-chief, or worse, the actual video game developer themselves. But it doesn't stop there. Let's check out what Wired had to say on the matter regarding why 2024 was the worst year for video games. In 2023, more than 10,000 developers lost their jobs. 1/3 of the game makers surveyed at the beginning of this year reported they have been affected by layoffs in some way. While there are wins for labour organisers at big studios like Activision Blizzard and collective action around fighting for protection from the encroachment of AI on employment, the industry's collective brain drain continued in 2024 as workers lost jobs in a mass. 6 months in, this year's layoff tally had already surpassed that of 2023. According to Matthew Ball, an advisor and producer in the games and TV space, 2024's job loss count will wind up being around 40% higher than the previous years. Funny where they say, while there are wins for labour organisers at big studios like Activision Blizzard, what wins? Making a union is not a win, especially if you haven't saved anybody's jobs, let alone people are still getting fired in this case of September 2024, where 650 gaming jobs have been cut and mostly have been Blizzard Activision. The truth is, they're losing. These unionists are going to end up just like the people at YouTube Music Workers, where Google brutally reminded them they are expendables.
We went on strike over our employers' refusal to bargain with our union. To this day, they refuse to come to the negotiating table, and Google still refuses to acknowledge us as their employees, even after countless losses in court which say the contrary. Needless to say, this has been a long fight. We've had many victories, such as unanimously winning our union election and having the NLRB declare Google and Cognizant as joint employers. But we still have work to do. We are disappointed to learn that this resolution has been delayed, but we can wait another month. We've been in this fight for a long time, and as far as I'm concerned, we have the council's support, and we have already won. So the passing of this resolution is yet another victory and another step in pressuring our employers to come to the negotiating table and bargain in good faith. There are less than 50 of us at YouTube Music, and we're taking on 2 of the largest corporations in the world. So to be supported by the city of Austin and also our allies in the labor community, give us the motivation to keep this fight going.
Not to interrupt, but they just laid us all off.
Oh.
Yeah, they just laid us all off.
We just all
Our
got
jobs are ended today, effective immediately.
Wow.
I'm sorry your time's expired, but...
Plus, if you work somewhere where they are financially struggling, losing millions of dollars by the day, would it be best to look for another job than fighting a losing battle? Nah, there's too much logic and brain power to use. But moving on, as the industry faltered, games suffered. High-profile releases like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League were commercial failures. While there were many reasons for this, online right-wing groups reduced it to a single mantra: go woke, go broke by their logic. If a game does poorly and has even a whiff of diversity, be it regarding gender, sexuality, or race, that disappointing performance is the fault of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Jeez, I wonder why as I show this clip.
For example, if you have a Bane gear set and you trigger his buffs in the game, some of it will have the Bane drums and you'll be like Bane and like boom, 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 and then there's like green smoke and you trigger all kind of effects.
Bane and like boom, boom, boom.
Played about an hour, but this is like a consistent issue now. Just watch. It's gonna happen. Oh my god, dude. I was trying 4 times to get here. I actually saw some new gameplay. I actually heard. Why do we need this in the year 2024, man?
You can't see none of that. But that store work. That store work. I can't play the game, but the fucking store works.
Although there's been incredible games released this year, Balatro, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantasio, Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, they just couldn't distract from the troubles faced by the people making them. They couldn't make up for the fact that the meta-narrative of video games in 2024 was bleak. Yeah, because they were made by professionals. The games were made for gamers. It didn't have any DI or political narrative nonsense or any propaganda shoved down our throats. Oh, and by the way, the games ran properly, day one, no bug or getting kicked out of servers constantly. Ball says that the blame for all of this can't be pinned to a single thing, like capitalism, mismanagement, COVID-19, or even interest rates. It also involves development costs, how studios are staffed, consumers, spending habits, and game pricing. This storm is so brutal, he said, because it's all of these things at once, and none have really elevated since the layoffs began. Oh, so the Wild got one thing true, so I'll give them that. However, my concern is where they say capitalism, but we'll get to that part a bit later. With dwindling opportunities to get funded from investors and little cash to go around, developers sought alternative methods to fund their games in the past year. Some took bankrolling into their own hands. Among Us creator Innersloth launched an initiative to give fellow developers backing to finish their projects. Others like Tales of Kenzera Zhao, developer Surgeon Studios, made their plans public in early development in hopes of attracting investments, all while fending off racist attacks from the anti-DEI crowd, making the challenges they're facing twofold. Yeah, because Surgeon Studios, let alone Abubakar Salim, hired Sweet Baby Inc. in their development. Every gamer, knowing they are the most anti-white consultancy firm, has been destroying our modern games for years. Yeah, these people don't do research. They're actually in their own bubbles, let alone echo chambers, but we'll carry on. In other words, it's been a dismissal year for morale when developers gathered in Los Angeles in June for Summer Game Fest. Developer New Blood Interactive bought out a billboard solely to memorialize their fellow developers who'd lost jobs. God, do these journalists know their grammar? We love you, we miss you, we hate money. Yeah, communists at its finest. This year may have been the 10th anniversary of Gamergate, the 2014 online hate movement that shaped the internet harassment tactics apparent today. But online conversations felt like a trip back in time. Conservative ideologies bemoaned the inclusion of characters who did not fit the cookie-cutter image of a white, cis, hetero man. They complained that DEI was being forced upon them. You're lying! In March, harassment toward a small consultancy company called Sweet Baby Inc. See, I knew where this was going. Reached new heights as bad actors organised through Discords, Steam forums, and other online spaces, branding themselves as Gamergate 2.0. Online mobs harassed developers using tweets, DMs, YouTube videos, and Twitch streams. They targeted anyone with any connection to Sweet Baby and other consultancies, a fairly wide net, as consultants are often brought on to advise on accuracy, sensitivity, and more. Their mission was fighting against workification. The realities of the economic issues impacting games they love had no place in their tactics. The spectre of diversity had more pull than analytics and experts. Games with black leads and characters were derided as forced. Female characters deemed unattractive or masculine were suffering from DEI-chin. Dragon Age The Veil Guard was criticised by far-right trolls for its customization options, which allow players to create characters with top surgery scars or play the non-binary companion. After reviews were released, conspiracists latched onto cliched phrases or other language as proof that Studio BioWare was instructing reviewers how to talk about their game. Conspiracy? Girl, I have shown you and everyone who's watching right now or watched my past videos what Sweet Baby Inc. have been doing. Plus I can show you this troll right here who's close friends with Kareem Bush. She was of course going to "Shill it to me, baby," while screaming in her game review. Otherwise, no free early code for you. DI-chin? I gotta use that one. Normally I would say Buzz Lightyear chin, but hey, you learn something every day. Pressure to remain apolitical, a curious agenda for entertainment form that marries the artistic preference of narrative imaginary worlds with agencies granted to players who inhabit them, did not come just from a vocal minority. Following the release of Black Myth Wukong, some streamers were given instructions to avoid talking about COVID-19 or feminist propaganda. The guidelines had the opposite effect, encouraging streamers to lead with the code words they have been barred from push against standards meant to actually censor players. Oh my god. Yep, like I said, these people are stuck in their own bubbles. No. It was only talk about the video game, no politics. The reason these video game weirdos hate this is of course they can't push their narratives in their reviews, let alone in these articles right now. I mean, we all know what happened when IGN tried to stir up that misogynist article that only led to China literally stinging them in their backsides. If you told them right now, review this game with no political or opinionated nonsense, only the game itself, they couldn't do it because of course they don't play video games or do research about the industry itself. Even not yet released titles face bombardment. Compulsion Games South of Midnight, about a young black woman in the deep south, grew eerie from the anti-DEI crowds on platforms like X, where they photoshopped the heroine to make her look less repulsive, and put forth conspiracy theories about Sweet Baby's influence on the game's development. But it was on their website, they were in cahoots with Compulsion Games. Also, I can just show you this photo right now, that yeah, this is what this heroine was supposed to look like in the first production, in pre-development. That she's supposed to be white, and she's supposed to look like a Southern Belle. But the moment that of course Sweet Baby came to Compulsion Games, Kimberly told them to blackify her. It was that simple. But of course, like I said, these guys don't do research, they're only there to spread narratives and lies. So I'm not reading any more of this trash, as this is just a one-sided story, let alone a piece of fiction. Whoever wrote that, we love you, we miss you, we hate money, let alone who's on board with it. Again, they should be fired on the spot. Having people who are communistic, let alone Marxist ideals, kill a company. And also shows how miserable they are. And everyone else who is having fun shouldn't be allowed to. Jesus, who wrote this abomination? Megan Farouk Manash. Of course, she's in the Cool Kids Club. She has to write, have the very people who she interviews tell her what to write or else. But when you look at her Twitter profile, oh boy, is she on a mission to fight the chud, right-wingers and conspiracy theorists. Yep, she's a talentless hack. and no matter her failures and delusions, gamers are going to be blamed for it. But when you look further, oh, what's this? Abu Bakr Salim has been talking back and forth with Wired? Who would have guessed? To conclude, I want to show you a segment with my deep dive reaction about Cameron Wild, who is a Sweet Baby Inc. employer. Oh, and what the DEI cult involves and where it leads to in the end. This goes for video game journalists as well as some video game studios. When you're in a cult, and especially in the DEI and Alphabet Soup one, there are 3 things that have to be stripped away in order to be a cult member of Sweet Baby Inc. and many other video game companies right now. Number 1, dehumanization. This is where you have to strip the subject of their humanity, making them subhuman, leading them to think they are inferior. This makes their harmful or discriminatory actions justifiable. Number 2, critical thinking and any other education outside the cult is evil. In order to keep your cult members down and always keep crawling back to the leaders is to make sure they are naive, dumbed down, and scare them that anyone from the outside world that is reasoning with them or show them the truth are the enemy. Now, of course you heard all the degrading words like bigot, phobes, isms and ists, but to the cultists, they are too scared to be labelled that. It's their worst nightmare. I mean, I can show them statistics, data, videos, photos, or even take them to German CC camp or to meet the individual, but it doesn't matter, they don't want to know. In their eyes, you must listen to your new parent cult leaders, no one else, even if it means ostracizing your own family. You don't want to upset the apple cart now, do you? But the only time they will listen is when reality comes to bite them in the backside, which of course is happening right now. Outsiders are not allowed to work with us. Diversity of thought does not exist. Even see or listen to what goes on from the inside. Sweet Baby Inc. is your new family now.
Hey, let's make Chris and Linda an official part of the group.
Yeah! All right.
One of us, one of us. Google gobble, Google gobble, one of us, one of us. Google gobble, Google gobble, one of us, one of us.
And you must protect the Sweet Baby Inc. way of life, meaning putting as much DEI message slop into the video games, terrify and blackmail companies into compliance, or especially those who are lost and miserable but need help with their companies, to be the cure to make them strong and healthy again. You do everything together, you work together, eat together, spend every working moment together, just so the cultists are fighting to pin favour of their new god or goddess. Have you ever heard this famous phrase, give them to me young and stupid, young and naive, because they make better cult members? Or, give them to me young and stupid, and I'll make them rich in no time.
Bill, give them to me young, hungry, and stupid, and in no time, I'll make them rich.
If you said Jordan Belfort or the Wolf of Wall Street, you are correct. Now, quick question. In Jordan's brokerage company, why didn't he hire intelligent people, let alone licensed brokerers? In his company, Stratton Oakmont. Yeah, they were too bright and they couldn't be manipulated and desensitized into doing illegal activities. Jordan wanted desperate, lonely and vulnerable people. Them being useful idiots at life was a bonus. Because if you hire those kinds of people, you can manipulate them and mold them into doing anything that you wanted. No questions asked. But when Jordan was arrested by the feds and was interviewed, what he said was very chilling, but it made a lot of sense of what was going on.
Stratton was a cult. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Michelle. Why do you think it was so hard to penetrate? Jordan looked over at Agent Coleman. How many doors you think you knocked on over the years? Just a ballpark. At least 50, he replied. Probably more. And every last one of them was slammed in your face, right? Pretty much. No one would talk to me. A big part of that was that everyone was making so much money, no one wanted to upset the apple cart. But it was more than that. What was at the very core of it was protecting the Stratton way of life. That's what everyone was doing. Protecting the life. Define the life. Well, among other things, it meant driving the fanciest car, eating at the hottest restaurants, giving the biggest tips, wearing the finest clothes. I mean, we did everything together. We spent every waking moment together. And not just at work, but at home too. I looked at Michelle. staring into her black as night eyes. That's why Stratton was a cult, Michelle. It was all for one and one for all, and lots for oneself, of course. And there were no outsiders around, ever. See, above all, it's my ability to speak before the crowd giving sales meetings to the Strattonites that was at the heart of my success. It's what kept the pump going all those years, despite all the regulatory problems we were having. The meetings. Yes, the meetings. It's what separates, or should I say separated Stratton from every brokerage firm in America. Twice a day I would stand before the boardroom and preach to the brokers. No one on Wall Street had done that before. Occasionally, a brokerage firm would bring in a guest speaker, someone like an Anthony Robbins type. But it was always a one-shot deal, not as part of a program. And that's a complete waste of time, to do it once. If you want results, you have to do it every day. And if you really want results, you have to do it twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Then miracles can happen. But of course, I wasn't aware of that back in my Great American days, although I will tell you that the first meeting I gave was a real eye-opener. It took place inside the warehouse in Forest Hills, Queens. There were 20 salesmen there, most of them in their early 30s. They were all dressed in jeans and sneakers, trying to look like truck drivers. They were gathered around in a circle, and I was standing at the center. At first, I started speaking slowly, talking about the quality of the food, how amazing it was, how there was nothing else like it, and how lucky our customers were to have access to it. In hindsight, I was laying the foundation for a cult, although back then, I was doing it without even knowing it. And the fact that Agent Coleman held up his hand. What do you mean, laying the foundation for a cult? I looked at Coleman and said, let me put it this way. At the heart of any cult, whether it's Stratton Oakmont, or Great American, or those crazy Branch Davidians from Waco, Texas, is the fundamental belief that, in spite of what the rest of the world might be saying about them, everyone else is crazy, and they're sane. And, without exception, it always starts with a belief in the justness of their cause. With Muslim extremists, it's a warped interpretation of the Quran. With the Branch Davidians, it's a warped interpretation of the Bible. And at Stratton, it was the boardroom itself, the great equalizer in an otherwise unfair world. In other words, it didn't matter what family you were born into, or how limited your education was, or how low your IQ was. Once you stepped into the Stratton boardroom, all that was behind you. You became equalized. You could make as much money as the most powerful CEO in America. All cults draw their power by advancing a concept like that they have some sort of one-up with the world. With Great American, it was having food you couldn't get in the supermarket. And with Stratton, it was the promise of becoming rich, in spite of the fact that you were a high school dropout who deserved to be working the checkout line at 7-Eleven. That's why I said before, give them to me young and stupid, young and naive, because they make much better cult members.
It all makes sense now.
If you wonder why video game journalists and activist game developers are utter losers and nothing but ego strokers, this is it. Because they are part of the echo chambers and the inner circles of the video game companies which are crumbling right now. The moment that they don't want to see reality, let alone take responsibility of their failures and actions, there is no point in trying to reason with them. You're only wasting your time. If they themselves don't want to take the first step out of their safety bubble. But what's even more disgusting is when they blame the very people they need to keep their studios afloat, let alone have a career. They can write, let alone say many ego-stroking phrases or articles to make themselves feel powerful and make themselves feel good, but it doesn't change the dire situation a single bit. Instead of facing themselves and admit that they've been duped and all those years of hard work only led to narcissistic devastation, they chose to attack gamers because it's the only thing they have left. Their time is almost coming to a close and they literally back themselves into a corner and there's nowhere to go. And just like a mouse or a rat, all they can do is attack as a last resort, which again, they will ultimately fail, as the cutthroat marketing cat will just devour every last one of them. This is Wilksy 15, signing out.
Some lovely sentiments there. Some very beautiful words. Unfortunately, that's all they are. Sentiments and words. What you've just witnessed is a piece of fiction. The reality, I'm sorry to say, is much harsher, far more brutal.